getting ready to go live. People asking the questions. Notifications. Okay. And there we go. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a special edition of Off the Record this evening. We have a great guest who I have been working tirelessly trying to get so we can capture this beautiful history and testimony from a man who has been around for decades and has helped establish our credibility in many, and just, man, just a great brother and a humble brother. I thank you, Brother Captain, for taking time out of your busy schedule. Walaikum salam, Sister Mimi. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Yes, sir. The first question I have for you is, when did you first hear the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Before I give any answer at all, I want to say in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, and I'm eternally grateful to Allah for coming in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad. And I thank him so much for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for redeeming me and saving me. And I thank them both for today giving us a divine leader, teacher, and guide in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So with that being said, I can answer your question. Got to put things in their proper order. I first heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad around April or May of 1967. I was much like most young brothers in the street. I was doing my thing and knew what I had to do to survive. But I heard the teachings on a Friday night. And there's a sister who, I don't know if she's still in Atlanta now. Her name is Sister Capt. And her father used to share information with my brother regarding the teachings. And of course, he would share it with me. And to try to get through it quickly, I was definitely interested in the teachings because it's something that I had been looking for a long time. But being in the street, I wasn't quite ready to change. So one night, I was getting ready to go out to hustle. It was a Friday night. And my brother said, look, man, you know you like the teachings. Why don't you come over with me and listen? So I decided I would go with him that night to listen. And at the time, I was wearing a do. You know, I was wearing I was wearing a comp, you know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Trying to be in the game, you know. And so I heard the teaching, man, and it hit me in such a profound way that the next morning I went to my barber, and my barber was ready to get the grease and get the lye and all that stuff and redo my hair. And I told him, I said, no, man, cut it off. And he said, man, you gonna cut off your do? I said, cut it all off. And so that's sort of how my beginning and how it started.
Wonderful. Yes, sir. And what city was this? Detroit that you heard the teachings?
It was here in Detroit. I had just moved here to Detroit from St. Louis. And the brothers was really on the street and they were really after me. And others, of course, on the street to come to the mosque, you know. But like I was saying, I was so wild and crazy. I couldn't, you know, I just didn't go right away. But I eventually did come. Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Yes, sir. And who was the minister and captain in Detroit at that time?
The minister at that time was Malcolm's brother, Philbert Omar. And he had two brothers there. And Brother Omar came after his brother Wilfred. So Brother Omar was the minister at that time. And the captain was the nephew of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. His name was Captain Roscoe Muhammad. And his mother was Sister Emma Muhammad, who was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's sister. So yes, he was my captain during that time.
Praise be to Allah. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
And did you ever get a chance to hear the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad speak live or see him live for yourself?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. In fact, I don't know if I'm going to have enough time, but my very first Savior's Day, I had a seat all the way in the back of the auditorium, way in the back. We were at the Coliseum during that time,
Mm.
and so the I was sitting in the back just enjoying the meeting, and excuse me for one second.
Yes, sir. Welcome, salam, sir, Brother Rashad, and welcome, salam, Brother Victor. Yes, sir. That's your captain. Okay, wonderful. Thank y'all.
Yes, sir.
So I'm
I
listening.
was I was sitting in the back of the auditorium or the Coliseum, and I was just enjoying the lecture. I was just very happy to just be at Savior's Day. And one of the lieutenants came by and he said, "Brother, have you been on post?" I said, "No, sir." So at that time, he said, "Well, I got a post for you, brother." I said, "Yes, sir." So I jumped off. I was following him on the way to where he was going to put me on post. And we kept getting closer and closer to the rostrum. And I was getting I was getting nervous, as we kept getting closer. So eventually, I was probably 20 to 25 feet away from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, rather, while he was teaching, and he was up on his platform throwing down. I was just in total amazement that I had the opportunity at that time, to be that close to him. So that was my first time hearing him live, hear him really speak live. Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah.
Yes,
And
sir.
at that time, who did you all think that the messenger was? Like, how did you all refer to him? Was he Elijah Poole? Was he the most like who was he at that time to you all?
We referred to him as the messenger, but the thing about it, he was everything to us. A man that was bolder than anything you ever seen, that had nerves like steel, and our father, our hero, our champion. He was our everything at that time, because you had a lot of things going on during that time. You had the riots that were breaking out, broken out at Watts out in LA. You had the riots that had broken out in Newark. And then Detroit was like one of the worst of the uprisings during that time. Then you compound that with the civil rights movement. Uh, he was our everything at that time. But we referred to him as the messenger, some the lamb, you know.
Praise be to
Yes,
Allah. Yes, sir. And
yes, sir.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in and with us when we have a conversation with Brother Captain. Brother Victor says, please tell you that the first line of defense is checking in and is listening. Brother Rashad Muhammad says history is being spoken. And thank you, Sister Miriam, as well. Yes, sir, Brother Captain. Did you ever get a chance to see the Most Honorable Minister Farrakhan prior to 75, like during that time period? Did you ever see him?
Well, actually, the first time and all the time that you would see the Honorable Farrakhan, you would see him on the rostrum bearing witness almost louder than anybody, And that was the first time that I saw the Honorable Farrakhan. Then I saw him again in January of 75. That's when his two daughters, they had a double wedding down in Maria. And they married two of the cousins, the Muhammads, Wali and Arif. Yeah, that was the second time that I got a chance to really see him, really up close, But we used to hear the Honorable Farrakhan every Sunday from 6 p.m. to 6:30, a half-hour broadcast, and it was just profound. I mean, because we would be trying to wrap up all of our work, our papers, and set up for the MUI, all of that, to make sure that we could be home in time to hear that broadcast.
Yes, sir.
And if you got in there in your house or your apartment too late, if you got there in 629, all you would hear is "Thank you for listening. May Allah grant you the light of understanding as I
Mm,
greet you in peace."
mm.
And that was the end of it.
Yes, sir.
But yes, sir.
Wonderful. There during that time period, did you ever think that the Most High Missile Farrakhan was special, as far as like maybe being the one that would be who he became? Did you ever see that prior to 75?
I'll say it like this: to hear the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, you knew that you were listening to an extraordinary individual.
Mm, mm, mm.
I mean, the way that the minister was teaching, brother, he can make a rock move.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so uh, in 1972, Detroit used to sponsor bus caravans to go to Chicago.
Mm.
And so, fortunately, on this particular Sunday, we had like 12 or 13 buses of believers and visitors that were going to Chicago to hear the Honorable Elijah Muhammad doing the theology of time.
Mm, mm.
And fortunately for those of us who made the trip that particular Sunday, we were blessed to hear the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and to witness him bring the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan out and instructed us that wherever he tells us to go, wherever he tells us to stay from, to stay from. So I feel exceedingly blessed to have had the opportunity to be present at Mosque Miriam that particular Sunday, and it made you know for certain that there was absolutely something profound and unique about our brother.
Praise be to Allah. That's a wonderful story. Yes, sir. I have a question. You mentioned Malcolm X's brothers. Um, when Malcolm X left the nation, what did how did that affect you in the city of Detroit?
I wasn't in the nation when Malcolm was killed. I was still in high school.
Mm, mm.
So when Malcolm died, I wasn't in the nation during that time.
Okay, yes, sir.
Although the only brother that really spoke about that situation with Malcolm was Will Filbert.
Mm,
And at the time, the apparent the on the surface, it appeared that they were in agreement with Malcolm being uh, dismissed from the nation based
mm.
on his not following the instructions of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
But of course, I'll just say it quickly that once the nation of Islam during that time, once it fell, uh, Brother Rasul and I went to a meeting at Wayne County Community College at which Brother Filbert was speaking. And you heard something different. This is after the fall of the nation, of course. You heard something different, and that was that really deep inside they had some displeasure about how they felt their brother was his brother, I should say, because it just came from Filbert, about how his brother had been treated and what the general population of believers thought of him. So they had been harboring some hurt about that. But when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was present, none of that was manifested or shown.
Yes, sir. Okay, praise be to Allah. Walaikum salam, Sister Naima, and thank you all for watching. Yes, sir. During the fall, what was that like once the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad left? How did that affect you personally, and how did it affect the city of Detroit?
Well, it was so devastating, it's kind of hard to really put in words. But I'll give you an example. It's like your mother say, Brother Joshua, I'm getting ready to go down here to the corner store and I'll be right back. And she never shows up again, never
Mm,
returns.
mm, mm, mm.
So it was quite devastating. And for me, I had one particular scripture that I was holding on to, Surah 2:112. So I was hanging on to that scripture to until I could get my bearings about what was going on, what had actually happened.
Yes, sir.
But um, it's something you never want to experience ever.
Mm.
You know, he was everything to us. So it left you kind of question, well, what are we going to do next? What's the next step? What's going to happen? And so when the imam took over, at least I thought we were in good hands, but I was very suspicious, because I didn't know him and I had never heard him teach, but I knew that he was the son of our father. So we trusted him based on that. But as time progressed, you could clearly see that things were going in a totally different direction from what we had been taught. And there was a lot of animosity in some of the people who uh, didn't want to be under the law.
Mm.
And so the leadership took the shape of a lot of folk who, in my opinion, they were just rebels, man. And they had a lot of negative things to say about the cheating. They had a lot of negative things to say about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And they would even sometimes in their lectures from the rostrum, they would point their fingers at you when they had certain negative things that was coming out their mouths. So the environment was just very hostile. And at a certain point in time, you knew that you had to excuse yourself from that whole situation because for me, I wasn't going to deny the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I wasn't going to deny him. Wow. So either somebody was going to hurt me or somebody was going to get hurt. Yes, I wasn't going to tolerate that. So my wife and I, we decided we would just practice our Islam at home. And I just had to leave because a lot of things that were going on were not in line with what he taught us. And unfortunately, there were people that lost their lives due to the level of animosity and hatred that had developed over him leaving.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you all for watching and thank you for your transparency, Brother Captain. You mentioned the sword 2:112. What was it about that sword that helped you hold on to your faith and to make you not want to, turn your back on the teachings that you have been taught?
Well, I'm only paraphrasing, but it says, nay, whoever submits themselves entirely to Allah, and those who be the doer of good to others, says, and have their reward with their Lord, and there is no fear for such, nor shall they grieve.
Yes, sir.
And so it made me to see or understand that if I continue to just try to do good in the way that he had taught us, I wouldn't have nothing to be afraid of and I wouldn't suffer any grief. And so that's what I held on to, to keep me in faith.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And we're forever grateful that Allah helped you stay in your right mind and spirit. Did you ever fear for your life during that time period or the life of your family because you didn't go along to get along, if you will?
No, sir. Not for a moment. My whole disposition was as long as I am trying to live according to what he taught us, speaking of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and as long as I'm not doing anything to injure or harm any soul, then I didn't have to see where I had nothing to fear. I still had my street contacts, if you know if you know what I'm saying by that. So it was, I didn't have no fear, brother, no sir. Because I wasn't doing nothing to hurt nobody, so it was no reason for me to be afraid. I thought it best to just leave them alone, let them do what they felt they needed to do. Just leave me alone, let me mind my business.
Praise be to Allah. I want to say that this podcast has been brought to you by my sister Miriam's book, ABC I Love Me, and the coloring book, which is on Amazon. My brother, Politically Oppressed, and his business partner, Jamal, with their video production team, has sponsored this podcast street premiere. Thank you all very much for your sponsorship. And my second book, which is a children's book, Cleopatra, is on Amazon. Thank you all. If you have a business that you would like me to promote, please let me know. Um, Text message, DM or inbox J Imagination to Cash App if you want me to promote your business. Okay, Brother Captain, right back to business.
Yes, sir.
I want to read some of the comments. Brother Rashad says, "Thank you, Captain Abdul Majid, for your service to your nation." My brother says, "Salute to the OG." Victor thanks you for your history and for highlighting the history of the shoulders that we stand on. All praises due to Allah. What was it about what made you come back into the teachings once the Most Honored Minister was Farrakhan, or come back into the nation once the minister stood back up? And when did you do that?
Well, I had in my heart always a desire to see the nation come back up again. Of course, I didn't know how that would happen. And there were different brothers that had been in the nation that were trying to start or create their own movements.
Yes, sir.
And I went to one or two, but it wasn't anything that gave me any real satisfaction because so much had occurred. I needed answers and I needed clarity to a lot of things that had taken place. So we had a restaurant here in Detroit, Akbar's restaurant, that everybody used to patronize.
Mm.
And when the brother told me that there was going to be a meeting Tuesday night, he said, Minister Farrakhan will be coming in to teach on Tuesdays. And and I said, Minister Farrakhan? He said, yeah, brother, he's been teaching on the West Coast. He's been teaching a lot of places. So let me back up a little bit. Before he told me that, it was a public meeting that took place at Ford Auditorium here, I think in 1979. And we went to hear the Honorable Louis Farrakhan as he was in the rebuilding stage. And we saw a lot of the believers that we had grew up in the nation with, and the place was packed. And you know, we were still trying to, you know, get a handle.
Yes, sir.
And so after hearing him at the Ford Auditorium, I couldn't hardly sleep that night because, you know, it just began to just get my mind really working.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so when the brother told me that the minister was coming in, I'm going back forward. When the brother told me that the minister was out teaching, I said to myself, I said, well, I'm certainly going to hear him, you know, because everything that Honorable Muhammad said of him came rushing back to my mind. So I went to the brother's house and, you know, I had all his hair on my head, so he cut my hair. Back to that hair thing. So I had all that hair on my head, so he cut all my hair off and made me look presentable. And I got my wife and we came out, I think it was a Tuesday night. We came out a Tuesday night to hear him. And all I could hear in him was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I knew that that was the right time for me to get back on board and do what I could to help in this rebuilding effort.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And when you came back, how long did it take you to become the captain? Was that like over time, or like was that right away?
When I came back was around 81. And so it was July of 85 when the minister appointed me to the student captain's post.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And
yes, sir.
Also, speaking of your wife, my mother said make sure I always extend the greetings to your wife, sir, on behalf of her herself as well. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I definitely will. Definitely
will. What was it like becoming the captain in 1985 and having such a long tenure as a captain. How was that? And what are some of the what was the greatest joy that serving in that position brought you?
It was new territory. It was charting new waters.
Mm,
I had been a lieutenant prior to 75 and even a second officer.
mm,
So I knew about the importance and I knew about the weight of of such an important position. To be very honest with you, I didn't come back to the nation looking for any post or position. I just wanted to help the minister.
yes, sir.
And while we were having some problems, he came to Detroit and he told us that since we had all made our choices, he said, "Would you accept my choice?" And everybody said yes. And so uh, I was the first. I was the first name that he called up.
Mm,
And so
mm,
I was working with Brother Hakeem at the time, and he told Brother Hakeem I could function as the assistant minister or the captain. And Brother Hakeem, of course, being a very seasoned uh, person in the ministry, he asked the minister if I could serve as captain. And the minister
mm,
said, "Well, that's it. This is going to be Detroit's captain." And I want to add something to that. Um, the very next day, the mosque was filled that night. It was
mm.
filled to capacity. And the very next morning, I was anticipating quite a few brothers, coming to class. And so my first day of work, only 5 brothers showed up.
Mm, mm, mm,
Only 5.
mm.
But I said, well, if the minister chose me to do it, I'm gonna do the best that I can, and I'm gonna follow his guidance all the way through.
Praise God.
And by Allah's grace, in 1989, uh, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan sent Brother Rasul here as the minister,
Praise God.
and our our spirit uh, combined well, our vision for Detroit combined well, and I knew in Brother Rasul I had all of the right ingredients that I needed, you know, for the both of us to be able to do some really good things in Detroit. So, yeah, it was quite a struggle up to that point. But after he came and we joined forces, I knew right then that we were going to really be able to do some really good things for the city of Detroit. And thanks to Allah, we did. But to me, for as the captain's post, I heard the minister say, that those are his followers. So that's where I always felt about the soldiers,
Yes, sir.
you know, under my charge. They were the soldiers of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, and there was a political movement called No Child Left Behind.
Mm.
Well, my philosophy was no soldier left behind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
so you don't have a soldier with no shoes and no suit and make mockery.
Yes, sir.
If you got a soldier with no shoes, put some shoes on his feet. If you got a soldier without a suit, you make sure he got clothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
We don't pamper the soldier, but we got to look out for him. So we created a wonderful bond with the Brotherhood that made the captaincy a lot easier because when the soldiers uh, know that you care about them, then you can be hard on them.
yes, sir.
But long as they know that you care, and as long as you act it out, then they'll take your instruction, they'll take your reprimand, and keep moving. And so we formed such a beautiful brotherhood, man, that it gave pleasure to being the captain, only in the sense that you had a lot of good brothers to work with, and brothers that you loved and brothers that loved you. And so, to give you an example, we would go to the movies sometimes. There might be 30, 40 brothers.
Mm, 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 mm.
We'd be scaring the hell out of everybody in the movie. They didn't know what was going on.
Yes, sir.
But But we just enjoyed Brotherhood. You know, we'd be eating nachos, hot dogs, whatever, and just having a wonderful time. And then go right out the next day and hit the street and boost back on the ground.
Crazy. So wonderful, sir. And I want to thank you for your sacrifice. In
Yes.
Detroit, when I was coming up, ever since I've come up, I saw the junior FOI was the drill team that I saw was amazing, and it changed drill light years ahead when they were the young brothers. When I was in like in the '90s, when I was looking at the drill tapes, as well as the FOI. What was it about Detroit that could produce such military, um, just strong FOI that would y'all? I mean, y'all just had a military that you know through drill. I was amazed from the junior FOI to the FOI. Like, what was it about the city or your training that was producing such strong soldiers?
Well, to be honest, I've always been a person that I love warriors and I love uh, strong men. It might be they may be football coaches, maybe military men or the like. And so uh, my philosophy was about being a professional soldier. And being a professional soldier, there's a certain conduct, a certain behavior, a certain attitude, and a certain spirit that should be with you at all times. And so we try to uh, build that type of structure right down to the junior FOI. And so another thing that we tried to do was to make sure that we had activities and support systems for the juniors, you know, along with ourselves. So each year, for example, we would have what we call Junior FOI Fun Day. And we would take them out to the park. We feed them. We have all kinds of games. They could go out in the boats with the life jackets on and canoe and badminton and basketball and that type of thing. So they look forward to that each year. And so we just tried, that's just one example, but we try to do as many things as we could to show support for our juniors because, you know, a lot of them didn't have fathers like ourselves.
Yes,
so we try to create that bond with them too. So we your big brothers, whatever you need, you know, we're here for you. We're here to guide you and to help you.
Praise be to Allah. Was there ever what was the circumstances of you receiving your name, your holy name? Could you explain? Let us know that.
One night we were at the hotel. The minister was in town, and he had the laborers there for dinner. And so the minister he abruptly asked me, made a statement to me. He said, "Brother, you know, I really respect you." He's saying, I really appreciate your work. You know, and I was all emotional and whatnot. And so he said, when we get with the believers tonight, it's something I want to do for you. And that's all I could hear. I mean, I was just really, I'm being honest, I was just really emotionally caught up to hear the message of Allah. The apostle have good things or positive things to say about you, you know.
Yes, sir.
And so that night I was just working, man, you know, and the next morning he said, "Brother," he said, "why didn't you remind me? It was something I wanted to do for you last night."
Yes, sir.
And I was just too dumb and just stupid to just, you know, I just didn't know. And so we went over to the table to have coffee, and he was teaching us at the table, and he was in very good spirit. And he turned to me and he said the same thing to me again. He said, "Brother, I really respect you and your work, you know." And he said, he said, "You're a good example of a captain." And I said, "Of course." I just said, "Yes, sir." Actually, I can't contest what the message of God saying, but
Yes,
I'm like, I
yes, sir.
think he talking about the wrong person here. So I'm only saying this as a testament into the truth of what occurred.
Yes, sir.
And so he hit his hand on the table. Boom. He said, "No, brother, I have to use the definite article with you." He said, "You are the example of a captain." He's saying, particularly as it relates to the relationship between minister and captain. And then he slapped me, kind of patted me on the knee. He said, "But give me a few days, brother." He said, "Because I got to think of a big name for you."
Oh,
So, so about 4 weeks later, my wife and I were at home, and I got a call from Brother Joshua. He said, "Brother Muhammad," he said, I'm with the minister right now, and he told me to tell you, your name is no longer Brother Thomas Muhammad. Your name is Abdul Majid Muhammad, and your wife's name is Majida Muhammad."
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so I thanked him, and I told him to thank the minister for me, and just kept working. You know, it's a lot. Any name that any of us are blessed to have is a name that we have to work to live up to.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Great.
that's how my name came about.
Yes, sir. Excellent. What has been the greatest trial in your service, and how did you overcome that?
I would say that one of the greatest trials is patience.
Mm.
It's hard to serve our people in the many issues and many problems that come up in the captaincy. And it's hard to serve the people, our people, if we're not patient. And so I thought about that surah. It surely man is lost except for those who believe and do good,
Yes, sir.
and exhort one another to truth and exhort one another to patience. Because when you're trying to establish the truth, it's great trials that's going to come with that. And the only way that you're going to be able to overcome those trials is to be patient. So patience has been uh, one of the greatest trials that I've had, but also one of the greatest rewards.
Praise be to Allah. Wonderful. And thank you all for continuing to watch. And I thank you all for your comments. Yes, sir. What was the climate like of the Million Man March in Detroit?
It was super energetic. It
Mm.
was just very energetic. It was and by the way, Detroit brought one of the largest contingents
Praise
to
be
the Million Man March.
to Allah.
It was great. I mean, we had so much support from some of the major churches. We had great support from some of the nationalist brothers, and the sisters was just magnificent in supporting us and helping us. In fact, there were so many buses coming up out of Detroit that the city opened up the state fairgrounds, which is a large property here,
Mm.
and they opened it up so that all of the brothers that were coming to the Million Man March, they could load the buses up out there. And so we got great support. We had great support from the mayor, who was present there,
Mm.
the council members, lawyers.
Mm.
It was just great. The energy, it was just really high energy all the time. Great energy.
Praise be to Allah. And was there ever a time that during your time as captain with the minister in Detroit, or any time that you were a captain, that you feared for your life with the minister? Did you ever receive death threats, or did you ever have to challenge fear as a captain?
I wasn't afraid as long as I was with the minister.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It didn't matter about nothing. If he had given us his blessing, then that's all we needed. Now, there was a time when we had some threats,
Mm.
but unfortunately, the sister was not in her right state of mind,
Mm.
and they threatened to kill all of us, the minister, secretary, everybody.
Mm,
And actually, they came one Sunday and picketed the mosque.
mm,
And so I continuously appealed with them to leave us in peace and to leave our property.
mm,
And so uh, one older brother was aggressed upon and pushed to the ground.
mm,
And every time I would ask them to leave, they would throw profanities at me.
mm.
And of course, the brothers was like pit bulls; they were ready to get loose. But I didn't know, of course, if that situation was being staged and whether the enemy had cameras all over the place or whatever. So I continued and continued to appeal to them to leave our property and to leave us alone. And at one point, another brother got punched in the face.
Mm,
And so I said, enough is enough. I don't care who looking.
mm.
Um, they're going to have to leave us alone. So I told the brother, I said, I'm telling you for the last time, leave our property and leave us in peace and leave us alone. And he cuts me out again.
Mm.
And so at that point, I'd had enough. And once the order was given, the brothers went to work.
Praise be to Allah.
uh, the fruit was lined up in front of the mosque. We had traffic stopped for like 7, 8 blocks in both directions. And so finally, somebody had called the police, and the police asked who was in charge. And of course, I spoke up. I am.
Yes, sir.
And so I stepped out in front of the line, and he was putting on his officer's cap.
Yes, sir.
And walked up to me and looked me right in the eyes, put his hand out and said, Assalamu alaikum.
Hey.
And so unfortunately the sister she got arrested. Her sons didn't get arrested, but she got arrested. And as the minister put it, when you disturb the righteous, sometimes you get a spanking. So,
yes, sir.
So they had to get a spanking.
Yes, sir.
But I ain't never been afraid, in that respect. Yes, sir.
Wonderful. What advice would you give to future fathers?
Sir.
What advice would you give to future fathers?
Future fathers?
Yes, sir.
Our females is not like our males, and our males are not like our females. It's critical. It's more than critical for fathers to be actively involved in the growth and development of their children. In today's society, there are too many vices, thousands of distractions, and it's easy for a young, inexperienced person to get caught up, particularly with the social media and the types of information that can come to you over your phones, if you will. Yes, so fathers have to be there as those that give guidance and give encouragement and direction to their children, both male and female. They have to be there. It's critical because we still got 65 to 70% of households that are led by a female,
yes, sir.
Our mother.
Yes, sir.
So it's extremely critical for fathers to be there in whatever he can contribute to the development of his children. The most thing that he can contribute outside of finance is absolutely his time.
Yes, sir.
It's critical. I'll share something with you personally. And it affected me mentally, but not to the point where I would abandon the work, of course. My daughter said something jokingly to her siblings. She said, when our father get time to spend with us, she said, we're going to all be grown. And so today, I try to make sure that every opportunity that I get to have good quality time with my children, even though they're grown.
Yes, sir.
I do so
Praise be to
because
God.
it's important,
Yes, sir.
extremely important. So for the fathers, be a father. Step up, step up, and do your job. Do what you know you're supposed to do, and that's to be there for your children.
Praise be to God. Thank you, Brother Captain. What advice would you give to future husbands?
To future what?
Husbands.
Uh, there are two things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said of us: it's preparation and readiness.
Mm.
So for future husbands, again, get prepared before you take on the load. You know, a car doesn't, if you know you're getting ready to go up a hill, you don't start accelerating once you halfway up the hill. You start accelerating before.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So before you take on the responsibility of a wife and a family, be prepared, not just financially, but be prepared mentally.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. So be prepared.
Wonderful. Yes, sir. And I have two more questions, Brother
Yes,
Captain.
sir.
Um, Brother Willie, Minister Willie, in New Orleans sends the greetings and wants to know: do you have any examples that you could share with us where the minister showed kindness or love that you observed with him?
Absolutely. We were we were at the airport. It was about 15 of us. We were, of course, securing the minister to his plane. And there was a little time in between. And so the minister suggested, say, well, would you all like to have some coffee or something? It's like, yes, sir. So all of us went to have coffee, and we left one brother back at the gate. And so we were having our coffee and we were chatting and having a great time. And when we were on our way back to the gate, everybody started reaching to their pockets.
Okay, 1 second. Oh, James, okay. All right, Rick. Okay, 1 second. We got a little disconnected just now. We're waiting for our brother to come back on. And while his Wi-Fi he's working with his Wi-Fi, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is a good story, and we're just letting our brother get the Wi-Fi fixed. The connection is just slow a little bit right now. But thank you all for watching. As we hear these stories, I appreciate this. Could you all please like, share, and subscribe? As I put this on, uh, upload this on YouTube this evening, we want to make sure that we continue to share our history. And if you all had any people that you have any suggestions that I interview that can better record our history, can give positivity or powerful testimonies, please inbox me, text me, or message me anyone that you think that I should interview. I see all of your questions and your comments, and I appreciate that. Also, this evening, after this interview, we have another interview in approximately 40 minutes. So I want to thank you all for tuning into this one. Um, thank you. Um, yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Michael. Thank you, Brother T. Farrell. Thank you, Brother Willie. Thank you all for, yes, sir, Brother T. Farrell. We did finally get him. Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother T. Farrell, for your help and assistance with me getting Brother Captain. And I look forward to you next week sharing your testimony. We have so much talent, so many talented people that we know, like Brother T. Farrell. I thank you, great actor who's going to come on and share his testimony as well. So I just got the text message from Brother Captain. He said he is trying to get back on as we speak. And we thank you. I thank you all for your patience. And I look forward to some of your suggestions because there's so many people that can inspire us in every city. That's why I refer to Off the Record as the People's Podcast. So we want to make sure that we give a platform to people who may not get a chance to share their story and their testimony. Please give me suggestions on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or in person of people that we should interview. He said he's trying to get back on as we speak and as we wait for him patiently. I only had 2 more questions for him, but the next interview, the next person that we're interviewing, man has been in the nation for over 35 years and has been soldiering and has faced death threats, has been with the minister, has traveled, and in 45 minutes, we shall hear from him as well. And I'm looking forward to his testimony to give us some inspirations. Also, my sisters always suggest that I interview the sisters as well, so we won't be come off as a sexist podcast. So if you have any sisters or children, anybody that you think that has a great testimony to inspire and enlighten, they don't have to be just a pioneer. It can be anyone, for it is a people's podcast. One moment. 1 second. I'm letting Brother Captain get back on. Okay. His Wi-Fi is not going to get back on. So we'll bring it back on for part 2. So I don't want to leave you all waiting. But thank you all for tuning in for this episode of Off the Record. I appreciate that. May Allah bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.